Welcome, everyone. I'm Richard Herskowitz, the artistic director of the Ashland Independent Film Festival, and I hope you enjoyed Love, Sarah. I'm very pleased that we have with us today the director of the film, Eliza Schroeder. Eliza is coming to us from London. Actually, this is transcontinental. I'm here in the United States, and our other guest is in Santa Fe. So this is Eliza's first feature. She actually has two master's degrees, one in German and Cultural Studies from Humboldt University in Berlin, and another in filmmaking from Goldsmiths University in England. She's done television and commercials work, and a short film about a cupcake baker that I guess was a prelude to her making Love, Sarah. Also with us to moderate the program is Piper Davis. Now, Piper Davis is the host and creator of the podcast Mouthy Pod. She is usually based in Portland, but she's reaching us today from Santa Fe. She's the author of the Grand Central Baking Book that was published by Random House in 2009. And the Grand Central connection is that she is the co-owner and cuisine manager of Grand Central Bakery, which is in Portland and Seattle. And she's the daughter of the founder of that bakery, named one of the top 10 bakeries in the country by Bon Appetit. So you can see we found the perfect moderator for today's discussion. I'm going to duck out now and turn it over to you, Piper.
Thank you, Richard. And hello, Eliza.
Hello, Piper. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. I was so grateful that that we got the flip. I was like worried about the timing because at being a baker, I'm miserable past like 2 p.m. I have no brain cells. So I was like, please, can we do this in the morning? So thank you for showing up in your evening.
Absolute pleasure. I do understand that. I get up very early myself, not as early as you do probably, but so you have my sympathy.
Yeah. Well, I want to start by just congratulating you on the lovely movie. It was just such a bright spot when I sat down to watch this sort of unapologetically positive movie, but not that it lacks substance or complexity. And my first question was just sort of like, how did you balance sort of the light and the dark that are involved in good storytelling?
That's an interesting question because I had this ongoing discussion with the producer and the writer, and because it was originally my sort of idea that I brought to them, and then we had this wonderful writer Jake who applied his magic to the story and to the script, something I would have never been able to do the way he has. But we had this ongoing discussion about me wanting to keep it quite sort of substantial and dark, and they wanted to lift it up. So we constantly had this sort of very positive discussion going on where Rashida, the wonderful producer, said, you have to give people some, light and some hope. And I said, I know, but they need to earn that. So I wanted the audience to feel what it means to lose a beloved person, because I have experienced that myself, and it has very much shaped my storytelling and the way I am. So I wanted to not just brush that off or away, but I wanted to make space for that. And I hope we have managed.
Yeah, no, I think you did, because I found it like we all have had loss and grief and complexity of identity in our lives, and you kind of like feathered it in this. It was a soft but substantial throw, if that makes sense, kind of like. And I was wondering if you had. I'm assuming this all happened before the difficult times we're in. Yes.
You mean the actual shoot?
Yeah. I mean, just the whole idea of like how your approach, and then the sort of I'm assuming it all was made before the COVID crisis, and I just think it's an amazing thing. It's sort of a gift. It's just I thank you for that gift that you've given us during this time.
It happened before the COVID crisis, and I've had these hilarious questions from journalists all over the world. Who lots of them were asking, "But do you really display bakes like that in London? Are they all display like that? Like just for everyone to sit on, basically?" and of course not anymore.
Oh, I know. Well, I was looking at that because I have haunted bakery displays in my life, trying to figure out what the best way to display stuff is. And I always look at Europe and I'm like, they are so much more realistic about germs. In America, we have to wrap everything up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So no, it looks beautiful.
American experience is very different. Even when I have been wandering the streets of New York and have been trying to, I'm absolutely obsessed with anything that's sweet, unfortunately. So so everything is always wrapped up, but it's actually quite nice, isn't it? Because at least there's nothing on there. So anyhow,
no. Well, yeah. So how come? Why use a bakery as the center for a story that's really about grief and reconciliation and identity and even paternity? Why center it at a bakery?
And I mean, first of all, because I love bakes. I love baking. I love anything that's to do with cakes. And you have these most hilarious situations with my husband where he says, what have you bought today? And I have just yet found another bakery that I love. And he's like, oh my God, this is going to become your new obsession. And can't you just try to bake it yourself? It's going to make it much more affordable. And I keep on, sort of wondering about trying to find the next thing that I'm obsessed with. So it's my obsession with, with cakes and anything that's sweet and that I can get my hands on. And then it was, of course, to sort of counterbalance, I guess, all the sort of heavier themes that are running through the films with something lighter and more sweet. So I guess that's how it came about.
No, it's lovely. And I think it actually worked visually too, where it's like, that's such a cozy, you automatically feel more comfortable to address more complicated issues when you're made to feel comfortable and have the idea that you're enjoying something delicious. So I want to move on to, in the movie, the bakery is sort of struggling with its own identity and what sort of products to help it distinguish itself from other bakeries that are in the same neighborhood. And right now, I know that in the United States, and I'm sort of assuming from what I hear is going on in your country, we're sort of struggling with identity and immigration and multiculturalism. And I love it when the character Felix says, well, he says something along the lines of, I don't know if it's like, we don't need to travel, but he says the world is coming to us now, or the world now comes to us. And so what is that? I have not been to London for 25 years. Okay. And I know it's weird. I don't know why. I've been to Europe and other places because I speak Spanish, I tend to go to Spain. But anyway, what does it look like in London right now? And what's the significance for you in that?
I mean, of course, Brexit has come about, which is, not so pleasant. But apart from that, I think London has always been for me ever since I started living here, which is now 15 years ago I moved here. It's always been this amazing melting pot of cultures and nationalities and backgrounds and religions, and everything's really sort of, everything is just multicolored in every sense. And I love that. And I have been thriving and I've been on that, and I've been very much been inspired by that, really, as a person, as a mother, as a filmmaker, as everything, because you just wherever you go, you just hear lots of different languages, and it is true that you have bakes from around the world. Really, you can find them here, and you can and of course it goes beyond bakes. And that has just, if I look at my children and how they grow up and how they go to school, it's just, something that I would have loved to do myself, because you get so inspired by all these nationalities. So London is very much a hub for all sorts of different people from around the world.
Yeah, well, I loved seeing that celebrated. It did bring up a question for me. So here in America right now, particularly in sort of progressive food worlds, there's a lot of talk about sort of culinary imperialism and cultural appropriation, and sort of like what did you grapple with the issues of sort of white women from the dominant culture profiting from the cultural currency of less privileged people? Did that come up in the conversation at all?
No, I mean, not so much, but it was more about, we wanted to make sure that we really, and I hope we have managed, because that was always a big discussion with everyone around us, that we make sure that we make a film that is, that represents any kind of origin and nationality and skin color. So we had that discussion a lot going on. I remember when we were, for example, have all these Indian women in the kitchen, and they were teaching Isabella, who is of Indian heritage, which I didn't know when we were writing the story. It was very much about making sure that people understand where she's from. And I don't know, it probably doesn't answer your question, but I don't think we didn't have an issue as such, but we were very aware of the sensitive ground that we're stepping onto. All I wanted to do as a German, as a Jewish German, actually, is to make sure that we try to represent as much as we can from all sorts of different backgrounds. And you can never really do it 100%, but that was my.
I think you did like one of the issues that comes up around this. It's sort of the classic is, I don't know if you're familiar. We have this. A chain across the country called Chipotle, right? That's about, it is a burrito joint, right? And it's of course founded and run by white men who employ mostly Mexicans to make the food, and they're the ones getting it. And I actually think that I wanted to ask you the question just because it's interesting to me, but I did feel I wanted to let you know that I really appreciated how you kind of flipped that cultural appropriation where I felt like the picture of the Indian women standing, they were in power, like you switched where the power lay kind of, and they actually almost had the power because they were the ones who had to purchase the things from, they had to prove themselves to the, and also I'm not an expert in all the global baking, but it sure looked like you were true to the traditions of whatever culture they were baking from. It was like I thought that was really, although the baker and business owner in me was a little concerned about the efficiency.
Well, we literally had the most hilarious scenes where we were traveling London day and night, talking to all sorts of different bakers from different backgrounds and really trying to be true to, what they would do. And we did a lot of research. We had an amazing food stylist who helped us also with the research. And, we did want to be very truthful to the difference, But what you're mentioning about Chipotle is really interesting. And I think that is, of course, a matter that is of great concern. And that's why I thought this scene that you're mentioning with the Indian women in the kitchen was really powerful, because it shows that they, in the end, they have the power, and it doesn't matter in the end who runs the business, because also the the customer who comes in and wants to have this particular bake is in power because they will make it for them. So I guess that was. No,
it worked. And then actually sort of building on that, the other thing I loved is that when Matthew was first introduced and he comes in with this classical French background, I kind of see him like he comes in representing the patriarchy as far as I'm concerned. And as a baker, French patisserie is the most patriarchal, no French housewife bakes patisserie. It's like the most ridiculous. I mean, I love French pastry, but it's not accessible. It's not, and I loved how his like we even had this experience at the bakery where when we first introduced chocolate croissants, we were calling them pain au chocolat. Well, no one would buy them because they couldn't say it, right? it was alienating. But then when we changed it to chocolate croissant, they're like, oh, I want a chocolate croissant. And so I loved how you flipped that. Did you think about the role of, or tell me about your approach to gender and who represents what in the movie?
It was really interesting because Rupert Henry Jones is such a lovely actor. And, we were always talking behind the scenes about wanting to give him more screen time. And, because I think he did his part so amazingly because he stepped back and he gave the women the power. So first of all, of course, I wanted to make a film about 3 strong women who have the thing under control, right? That was my wish. They are headstrong and difficult, and they will clash, but in the end, they will form a strong team, female team, to run the show. That was my wish. And really interesting what you're saying about French bakes, because I'm married to a French man, and so He's very particular about all his food and about meal times, about pain au chocolat and not chocolate croissant. He
Exactly.
would not eat chocolate croissant. He would only eat it pain au chocolat. So it's the other way around. But exactly that. When you, of course, when you walk through Paris, I think for me it's still so inspiring. You go to no matter where you go, you find the most amazing stuff to eat, right? The most amazing patisserie. And there's a difference between this high-end stuff that you look at and you're thinking, can I really eat this, or can I just look at it?
Mm-hmm.
and there's accessible food that makes you feel good. And I think that's what we wanted to. We wanted to make the bakes look nice, but it couldn't only be about the look. It has to be accessible. It has to be, you go there and feel homey, and you feel you're taking a piece of home with you.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I've had a bakery open up around the corner from me just recently, my new obsession, and they're called Buns from Home, and they very much deliver that message. And when you go in there, you want to take a bite, right? Because it's just also, and it's very simple, but it just works and it's delicious.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, that's what our bakery, that's been our success, is it is, my mother founded this bakery and she started baking the stuff that she baked at home. And then it's, over 40 now years, it has developed, and, as different bakers come through and we sophisticate, and, our bread is very sophisticated because slow fermentation and complicated artisan bread I think it's sophisticated, but it still is based in the traditions that happened in the French village communal oven. It's not the bread that comes out of it's not the super thin, crispy little baguette that comes from your, the boulangerie on the corner. So I think there's something about it where people still, they want what's familiar to them. And occasionally they want the, like right now, I love it sort of flies in the face of the Instagram pastry reality right now that is so like are you aware of all these like weird colors and people like sprinkles, like it's this whole thing in America right now of like over like food that is just to look at and not really to eat. And
I can't really relate to that. It has to be, it has to be. So I have to come and visit your bakery. I have to come all the way because it sounds delicious.
Well, I'll get your before we leave, let me get your real live address, and I will send you my cookbook at least.
Oh, I love that.
So actually what I want to end with is I can't help but to bring up the Bake Off, or Great British Baking Show, as we call it. And I love it that you had one of the winners as a cameo. That was really funny to me. Great, and it's because I feel like that's sort of like some of the best reality television, like America could not do as wonderful of, like, we don't have the capacity to do the combination of like the sort of the competition and the whole support and the multiculturalism that's featured in it and everything else. Are you a fan, and what is what do you think the effect of that show has been on British culture?
I'm a big fan. I think it's an amazing show. I think it's just an amazing idea. Also looking at it as a creative person, as a filmmaker, for a concept of a show, I think it's just really, it's amazingly entertaining, and you can learn a lot too. And you get to meet all these different people, again, different people from different backgrounds, different baking backgrounds, and how they approach baking. And working with Candice Brown was really amazing because she's not an actress, and she did so well. And I will never forget how the poor woman had to sit on a bike and bike along the River Thames, and she was it was a freezing day, and she did so well. And I was like, yeah, can you do this again? Can we do one more take? I'm like, well, the thing is, I need to, we just need to go on a closer lens and tighter lens. She's like, oh my God, I'm getting really cold. And darling, can we get you tea? And then, we kept her warm and stuff. But she it was really quite a hard day for her because, I guess you never really realize, if you're not an actress, how many times you actually do have to do like one shot, right? So she did so well. But no, I love the Bake Off, and I think it has definitely sort of, it's huge here, and it has, I guess, shaped, at least here in Britain, it really has shaped. People go crazy about baking, right? They watch the show and they do like food porn on Instagram, what they've baked next. So it's big here.
Well, and I feel like it has helped Britain reclaim. I feel like there's a strong baking tradition in Britain, and it's not, the whole United Kingdom. Like there's all these traditions all over, and I feel like in some ways it's helped elevate more. I don't want to say humble, but I'm going to say humble, like, where as opposed to the classic French, where again, flying in the face of us thinking that the only proper pastry in the world comes from France or is inspired by France.
My husband would agree with that, but no, I agree. And Mary, I mean, there's this Mary Berry, she's huge here, and she, and again, it's about accessibility and comfort food. I think comfort bakes, and if you look at the show, you just have people from all over the place, and that's really quite interesting because they will approach. So
no, I fully agree. Well, what is there anything that you would like an American audience to know about your film as we sign off here?
I really hope that the American audience will enjoy the film, and I hope they will. And it's made with so much love and so much attention for detail, and with lots of love for London and Notting Hill, and I hope that is visible on the screen, and just that really. Hopefully it will be a pleasure for them to see in these sort of unsettling times. No,
well, I think it's a big serving of comfort food.
Thank you very much.
I will give Richard some ideas about sharing the film within the baking community that I'm part of. And
wonderful. That's wonderful. And last but not least, I have to show you. Can you see the balloon?
Oh, there it is. Oh my goodness.
I've got the balloon. It's my little lucky charm in my living room.
That's so great. And do send me. I'll send. We have each other's email. Send me your your mailing address, and I'll shoot you a copy of my cookbook.
Can't wait. And then I will bombard you on Instagram with all the bakes I've made from it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.